with the release of Saw X, we're going to stop and rank all 10 Saw films. I'm Max and welcome back to Max Talks Movies. Usually on this channel, I do movie reviews, TV show reviews, these types of movie rankings, and every Monday, my box office breakdown show. So please subscribe, ring the bell. We're almost at 170 subscribers. Comment down below. Give me your ranking of all of the Saw franchises. Don't go into spoilers for Saw X. If you want to talk about all the other Saw films, let me know in the comment section down below. And also, please like the video, guys. The thumbs up button, that's how you support this channel. So as you can tell, I want to get into this video as quickly as possible. For reference for people, coming into this rewatch of the Saw franchise, I'd only seen the first Saw and Spiral going into watching all 9 Saw films. So I have seen all of these once, but very recent. I've become such a Saw fanatic and very quick since time. I'm very passionate about the films on this list and the ranking and where I put them. So here is my ranking of all 10 Saw films. Starting at number 10 for me is Saw 3D, or Saw the Final Chapter. And this movie really does not hold up from its release in 2010. Because it was made in the age of, 3D is the new hot thing in movies, some shots this did not look. This is the most ugly looking, worst made from a production value perspective of any Saw film. The blood looks like pink, more pink than red itself. And I think that the big overarching twist of the movie is not very strong. Now, this movie has plenty of good ideas in it, including making the main game be about a person who is a Jigsaw survivor fraud, who says he survived the Jigsaw trap and he makes all this money off of it. That's a great idea for a Saw twist. But as you can tell, originally it was supposed to be 2 movies, and you can feel when you rewatch this film that it's cramming in so much. I hate the opening scene with the public display of a Jigsaw trap. I like the idea of it, but it's so convoluted. It doesn't make any sense why no one could see Jigsaw making this trap, or really Hoffman making this trap. And then it's about a college love triangle, which I don't think is worthy enough of killing someone. So I felt like this movie was the most, just disturbing kills. Usually the people who are in these kills have a way of survival, but there are good people, I guess, in this movie that get killed brutally, especially the wife of Bobby in this movie, who's just a genuine nice person, gets the most gruesome death of the whole film. And I just don't like it. And then, of course, Dr. Gordon being the main twist. You could see it coming from a mile away. And I don't think it was that interesting that Jigsaw now has had all these apprentices over the first 7 movies. So Saw 3D comes in at number 10. Coming in number 9 for me is Jigsaw. I never heard anything about this, so I came in really blind for this 2017 film. But I really did not like Jigsaw. And I think the biggest reason why is that this is one of the most predictable twists of the entire franchise, because Logan itself, you just knew it was Logan, at least from my perspective, the entire movie. Now, yes, I really like the Eleanor character, her being a fan of John Kramer and putting all these traps back together just as a fan person. I can see people doing that today if someone is a killer like that. But she was clearly a red herring. And Detective Halloran, who's kind of the also person they're trying to put as like the person who was Jigsaw. If they did that, it would have just been Hoffman 2.0. So I knew it wasn't him. So it made sense of Logan, but I really do not like the explanation on why Logan is the person. They bring back John Kramer in flashbacks and make sure that Logan was like the first Jigsaw apprentice even before the first film. I just don't think that was a smart move. Also, this is just it might be the most well-made Saw film as a production value perspective. It loses all of its charm by not being that gritty, shaky cam, a lot of green coloring on the movie. It just seems so artificial compared to all of feels like very handmade original Saw films that they were made from. So overall, I did not enjoy my experience of Jigsaw, and that comes in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 for me, this is where my list can go all over the place, but starting at number 8 for me is Saw 5. Now, Saw 5 is a movie that I don't think is very good. um, because I think this film for me is on the bottom tier of Saw films because it does the biggest mistake actually in some other Saw movies, which is that the actual soap opera story of this Hoffman versus Strahm for me is actually quite interesting. But the other half of the movie is this jigsaw game with all these people who are about this burning building, and all these people had some responsibility for the burning building going up in flames and profiting off of that. And I just didn't care a lick about this jigsaw game going on in Saw 5. It had no tie-in to the actual Hoffman and Strahm story. It just felt like they threw in this jigsaw game for the whole movie for people who have not seen the first 4 Saw films. And it just feels like 2 different movies are going up at the same time. The soap opera Saw a convoluted storyline, then also this jigsaw game storyline, which I just don't think works whatsoever. Now, Hoffman versus Strahm, the twist at the end, I really enjoy. Where they're at the grass case and Hoffman, over the recording is telling him to get in the case because it could save him, but of course you don't really think about doing that. So Strahm throws Hoffman, and Hoffman's the one who survives it and once again squeaks out of the situation. I like Strahm investigating Hoffman and Hoffman being like the hero after the twist in Saw 4, but sometimes it does get a bit too convoluted in this movie as well. We get so many timeline jumps with Hoffman explaining how long he's known Jigsaw. That part of the Hoffman storyline always pulls me out of this movie, just going from timeline to timeline to Saw 3 to Saw 1. It just goes too all over the place. And as I said, the other half of the movie just does not interest me. So Saw 5 comes in number 8. Coming in at number 7 for me is Saw, one second, we pull it up, Saw 4. This is one of the more uninteresting Saw films in the franchise because the people that we're following are just not that interesting. Riggs becomes a main character after being very much a side character in Saws 2 and 3. And the lesson that he has to learn from going through what he goes through, I don't like about going through doors, and the lesson that Hoffman wants him to learn are not that interesting whatsoever. I don't feel we needed Eric Matthews back in this movie. I think after Saw 3, they could have just been done with Hoffman, with Eric Matthews. I just never got having him in this situation as well. And overall, just a very uninteresting main cast of characters that we're going after. Strahm is on this investigation that isn't very interesting. Riggs itself also, it just isn't on a great investigation. Now, I do like the idea of Riggs. All these people are awful people who Riggs runs into throughout the entire movie. I like seeing them die, I guess. But overall, and again, the Hoffman twist isn't that interesting. While I like the Hoffman character, he's not that interesting because he's so not in the movie that much in either Saw 3 or 4. And the mind-blowing twist of him being in it isn't as interesting because he just wasn't a character you're ever thinking of. So Saw 4 comes in at number 7. Coming at number 6 for me is Spiral from the Book of Saw. This movie, I think I disliked more the first time I watched it. I watched it for the second time just 2 days ago. And it's probably the most mediocre Saw film for me out of the entire franchise. It's not doing anything great. It's also not doing anything really that atrocious. Luckily, they bring back Darren Lynn Bousman, who was the directors of Saw 2 through 4, and he brings back that kind of early 2000s shaky cam, the right type of Saw feel that Jigsaw completely missed the mark on. But Spiral does capitalize on that. It was also kind of crazy to rewatch this. When you watch the Saw films in a row, and it's no offense to the actors in these movies, but there's no star power in any of the Saw films. And you get Chris Rock and Samuel Jackson. It's a lot of fun seeing them in the Saw movie. And Chris Rock is not doing a bad job here. The comedy that he brings in isn't that funny. I didn't laugh a single time on my rewatch. But he was very solid in the movie itself from a dramatic perspective. The biggest problem with this movie is that this has the most predictable Saw twist of the entire franchise, of the rookie cop who gets to team up with Marcus throughout the entire film, played by Max Minghella, is of course the person who is the copycat Jigsaw, because they show all these Saw traps of all these other cops. And when they show that Detective William is dead, they don't show him being a part of the trap. And of course, why would they show a trap unless he is the villain? And the overall, it turns out that William is the villain. I like the idea of a copycat Jigsaw going after the cops instead of the cops just being on the investigation ride the whole movie. But still, it's such a predictable twist that kills any emotion from the last third act of the movie. We're getting into top 5 territory for the Saw franchise, and starting at number 5 for me is Saw 6. Now, for a lot of people, this is their favorite Saw sequel. For me, I really do have a good time with Saw 6. And the biggest reason why is that I think it does the best job of all of the sequels, maybe except for Saw 2, at doing half the Saw trap game. And this time they go into the insurance business, where all those years ago, John Kramer went to get insurance for his cancer treatments, and the insurance companies, with some do to even to this day, don't pay for his cancer treatments, and it basically gives a death sentence to all those people that they decline giving insurance to. And they make this one person going through all this, William, and all the Saw traps revolving around William are tons of fun throughout the entire movie. As coworkers get killed. But also, I do like the Hoffman. This is the most interesting the Hoffman character has been in the entire franchise, because Hoffman has escaped Strahm at the end of Saw 5. But now Strahm is framed, but now the cops are now picking up on Hoffman being the new Jigsaw killer. And I love the scene where they go to the voice recording. Erickson leads it. And Perez go to the person who can fix the voice memo, so they can see it's not John Kramer talking, it's Hoffman. And that reveal every time is really intense, and Hoffman stabbing both of them is also tons of fun. I think what holds this movie back still for me is kind of the jumping around plot lines. It's so convoluted, and Saw 6 continues to add just the convoluted nature of the jumping of the timelines. Getting Amanda back into the mix on a flashback, just never really enjoyed it. So there's still tons of fun to be had in this movie, but it's one of the more convoluted still films of the franchise overall. And I don't really love the ending of Jill trying to kill Hoffman, because Hoffman has to come back for the next movie. So that's my thoughts on Saw 6. Let's get into my top 4, and starting at number 4 for me is Saw 3. Now, for a lot of people, I am, I guess, much higher on Saw 3 than most people. So a lot of people I see have this at near the bottom of the franchise, but I do think this is one of the better Saw films. And that's because it's very intense. I don't love the aspect of the movie where it goes to the husband character in the film, Jeff. He is not as interesting as his ex-wife, Lynn, in the film. But I do love seeing Amanda basically be the twist of the movie, being that Jigsaw did this, John Kramer did this whole elaborate thing, pulling a divorced family back together just to test Amanda. It's very interesting. And seeing Amanda become jealous of Lynn and John's relationship is really good as well throughout the entire film. And the intensity of Lynn having this neck brace around her, and basically if John dies, she dies. I really like that aspect of the Saw traps itself. As I said, seeing Amanda work together with John Kramer was a lot of fun. I also like the inclusion of Eric Matthews in this movie. I think 4 was a bit too much with the character, but Eric basically saying, "You're not Jigsaw," and Amanda's emotions just coming out of her. The fact that she really didn't get rehabilitated from Saw 1, that she went to do drugs again. And we obviously learn in future, also in this movie, that she's the one who actually killed Adam from the first film. Adam survives the events of Saw 1, and she comes back in and just kills him. She did not learn her lesson. I do really like the twist that the whole movie has been a test for Amanda. Other films have kind of cost this movie a bit by having Hoffman go through a secret door to talk to John Kramer during this movie. Always pulls me out. There aren't the greatest performances in the movie, and I just really don't like the Jeff character, but still I have tons of fun with Saw 3. Especially with the bear trap scene where this one guy gets twisted. The killer of Jeff's son And the fact that they have to twist all the bodies 180 is my favorite Saw trap out of all of the movies. So that's also why Saw 3 is this high on this list. Coming in at number 3 for me is Saw 2. I really like Saw 2. Up until the new one, this was my favorite sequel of the entire franchise because it's the most at this point, before Saw X came out, that we got of John Kramer. Because it was basically a mano a mano, John Kramer versus Eric Matthews movie where this is, I think, the best usage, in my opinion, of the back and forth of the Saw traps and the games mixed in with the main soap opera, like story. We have this trap in this abandoned building with Amanda a part of the traps, where it's about Eric Matthews and his son is a part of this game, and all of the people who Eric Matthews falsely put in prison, and they have to confront Eric's own son now being in the games. The traps in this movie are a lot of fun. The burning one in the first act of the movie is a lot of fun. I still can. It makes me feel so uncomfortable every time when Xavier throws Amanda into the needle trap, and she has to scrape through all these needles. She's getting poked from all over the place just to find the key that he hasn't opened in time. It's the most even though it's not the most violent of the franchise, it's the one that I really don't want to look at and hear the sounds of all these needles. I'm not a big fan of needles, and that seems like a horror for me. So I could not believe what I was watching. And I love the whole time from the rules perspective of John Kramer just talking to Eric saying, I just want to talk to you for the next hour until this thing ends. And trust me, your son's in a safe space. And of course, Eric doesn't believe this. Eric goes on this whole rampage with John. The big twist, I think the second best twist of the franchise being that Amanda is in the trap for a reason, because she is Jigsaw's apprentice, and he needed her in the game so she could set the rules for all of the competitors. And of course, another great twist of the movie was that the recordings that Eric and were watching from the headquarters of Jigsaw were from a long time ago, and that in that safe space, or I forgot what you call it, the locker thing, that Eric's son was in there the whole time, and the only thing he had to do was just talk to Jigsaw the entire time, and his son was literally 2 feet away from him throughout the entire movie. I do love that twist of the film. What really holds this movie back is some of the performances of the people in the game. There's some really just uninteresting characters, but also mixed in with bad performances that usually pulls me out of this movie. But still, I really enjoy Saw 2. Coming in number 2 for me is, shockingly, who'd have thought I'd say this, Saw X. I really had a blast of Saw X because it's the most contained personal story of the entire Saw franchise. We're literally just following John Kramer being vulnerable for the first time this whole franchise. He's basically on his deathbed. He gets scammed. This movie's about John Kramer getting scammed in Mexico. All these people in Mexico saying that we have this, they're not from Mexico, but they're in Mexico, saying we have this breakthrough type of medication that can save your cancer. And it basically, they use all this to take dead people's basically money away before they die. And this was what they do with John Kramer. He puts them in the trap, and Jigsaw kind of becomes an anti-hero in this movie, as the most despicable people of the whole franchise are the actual ones in this trap that you want to see kind of get revenge for. You want to see Jigsaw get his revenge on these people. I kind of like how the movie takes a slow start of John Kramer, where it's kind of just like a medical movie for like the first 40 minutes, and then becomes a Saw movie very quickly. I love them bringing back Amanda into the fold and seeing John and Amanda's dynamic. They disagree sometimes on particular people and things, but they are very close together. And I really like that emotional scene with the two of them in the movie that I just really liked. I think this is also a movie that is perfect for people who have never seen a Saw film, but I think it's also a lot of fun for people like me who've seen all now 10 Saw movies. There's a lot of good callbacks. The mid-credit scene was a lot of fun as well. And also the traps themselves being very medical based, because of the people who scammed them are doing this cancer treatment. That also made it a lot of gnarly kills. Again, some of the performances aren't great. How can John time things up perfectly in this movie? Not really explained when he's not in his home location, but still, I really, really like Saw X. But coming in first place for me is still the first Saw film. A $1 million budget coming back in 2004 from newcomers, James Wan and Leigh Whannell. Of course, James Wan would go on to be one of the most iconic horror directors of our time with The Conjuring, Insidious, Malignant, all these movies, but it all started back with the first Saw, and of course, starring and written by Leigh Whannell, who obviously wrote the Insidious movies, wrote Upgrade, Invisible Man. It's one of the most iconic duos in horror history, and it all started on a $1 million budget out of college. And the movie still holds up today. Still, by far, this is the most intense film of the entire franchise, just having Adam and Dr. Gordon in one space throughout the entire movie. It is just so intense as you go through all of Jigsaw's messages. X marks the spot. There's so many iconic moments. I also like the Danny Glover aspect of the detective story when he was a cop. Then he ran out of time and the police basically fired him after the killing of Dr. Singh, and then he just becomes mad in order to find the Jigsaw killer. And this is still one of the best twists in a movie ever made, with John Kramer, who you hear the voice of the entire movie, the fact that he's not the person who's kidnapped Dr. Gordon's family, but he's been laying in the middle of Adam and Gordon throughout the entire movie. It's still, every time you watch it, the twist always gets better because you pick up more things throughout the entire movie, and you just still can't believe that Kramer was just sitting there making sure everything goes right throughout the entire movie. I also still love that also part of the twist, which is the key that is the opening shot of the movie that falls down into the sink, is really what Adam could have helped to survive. I don't think Kramer wanted to kill Adam, but it turned out that Adam kind of messed up by having the key fall down the drain, and then Adam, of course, has to stay in the trap. There's just so many great usages of the voice and the traps themselves in the movie. This is easily the least probably gory of the entire franchise. There's a lot of implied violence more than showing it to you, but the film is just so intense. The twists and turns still hold up today. Now, I still think the biggest problem with this movie for being one of the best horror movies ever made are the performances. Now, a lot of people crap on Leigh Whannell's performance as Adam, and it's not a great performance. It doesn't pull me out of the movie. I actually really don't like Cary Elwes, who I'm a big fan of in this movie. His performance is so in and out for me. There's times where his performance is really captivating, but then when he's like yelling at the camera about his family, it just always pulls me out of the movie. It's so cheesy, and the performance is even worse than the dialogue that he's saying. So a lot of the performances sometimes in this movie sometimes just don't hold up, but still, this is still one of the most iconic horror films of all time, and now it has started now a 20-year franchise. So that is my ranking of all 10 Saw films. What are your thoughts on the Saw films? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys soon.